Welcome to Worth the Effort Confidence with conversation leader Jim Davis. The first minute or so was not recorded, so I'm just hopping in to introduce this conversation. All Worth the Effort sessions are an opportunity for athletes and coaches to meet up and discuss techniques and tools that are going to help them in training and gameplay. In this session, Jim Davis, an Ontario Provincial Boccia athlete and coach for the Niagara Penguins, leads the conversation by discussing game-winning mindset and confidence in boccia using Jim Acramo's book, A Champion's Mind, as a resource. Thank you and enjoy listening.
What I tend to do is talk to myself out loud and tell myself out loud what I want to do. So if I'm, for example, if I'm aiming for the jack, I'll say, straight arm, straight mind, and hit that jack. And more often than not, that does work for me. It certainly works more often than if I just throw the ball. So self-talk is very important. When you're thinking about self-talk, it's important that you focus and in the present. So you don't want to talk yourself into a bad play, right? You want to keep it simple and really anytime you're playing a game, you want to keep it as simple as possible. The last is T, and the T is for toughness. In a sport, when you're playing any sport, really, it's important that you stay tough in your mind, and you're prepared for what might come your way. So if something's not going right, you need to be able to take what's happening in the game and kind of shrug it off and kind of think like what I tend to think is, okay, let's take this one shot at a time, one good shot at a time, right? So if you have a bad shot, you have to be able to shrug it off. And this is something through experience I've learned is very hard to do, because if you're having a bad end or a bad game or a bad tournament, it's hard to stay focused. But you really have to, if you want to be a high-level athlete, you have to be able to put things out of your mind and just move on to the next shot. In psychology books, you hear it all the time, Tiger Woods just doesn't think about the last shot. He goes in and he makes the next one a great one. Michael Jordan, he'll have a bad game, but then he'll come back with 5 great ones in a row. I don't know how old you guys are. Michael Jordan might not be the best one anymore, but maybe LeBron James. You probably all know LeBron James if you follow basketball. One of the big things that really sort of bothers me when I go into a tournament and I'm talking to everyone about, boccia, and like I love to talk about boccia, and I love discussing the game, and I talking to the people that I even talk to the people I'm competing against. And the one thing that drives me crazy is that sometimes you get the people that say, "Oh, I'm gonna get the silver medal." This has happened to me. They're like, "Oh, I'm gonna get the silver medal." Well, they've already decided that they're not gonna win. That's pretty ridiculous. Whenever you're going into a game or a tournament, you need to go in with the mindset and be prepared to win. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. People that don't think they're going to win are going in afraid. You have to go in with a winning mindset. You have to go in with the attitude that I'm going to win. You can't play to lose. You have to play to win. Too many times I've seen people, and I'm guilty of it too, especially when I first started. I would be of the mindset that, I just don't want to get my butt kicked. I just want to go in there and try my best and don't get my butt kicked, rather than taking that harder shot so that I can regain the point. So a lot of times you really have to focus on winning the game, not just playing not to lose. In life, just like in boccia, you have to focus on what you can control. So one of the biggest things I like when people say in boccia, and coaches say this, everybody said, you have to control the controllables. And it's said in all sports, right? As an athlete, you can only control what's controllable. You can't control what your opponent's going to do. If you're playing a team game, you can't control what your teammates are doing. You can only control what you're doing, right? So you have to be able to take what you're doing and do it as best as you can. So in finishing up, you just got to remember, you can control the controllables. You can only do what you can do to win the game. So you got to remember when you're playing bocce, it's a game. So as long as you're doing your best to control what you can control, then you're quite often going to win. But sometimes you don't. Like as a champion, always remembers that you're never going to always win. Like the best athletes don't always win. Tom Brady doesn't always win, just wins most of the time. And I'm sure he puts in tons of effort, right? You have to stay focused to what you're doing. You have to work hard as you can to be the best you can. One thing that I didn't really talk about in my notes was I'm a big believer in practice. In order to believe in yourself, you have to know that you practiced. You have to know that you've put in the time and the effort to be able to beat the best players. For example, when we went to our first competition back, the Boccia Blast in London, I had a really hard time because I didn't have a place to practice, and I wasn't focused because I was very concerned because I knew I didn't practice. And it wasn't from lack of wanting to practice, it was just I didn't have space. So I went in there and I got sixth place. I only won one game. But I came back and I said, Loretta, we got to find a place for me to practice. We have to find a place. If I'm going to go to nationals in Quebec City, that's a long way to go and not win a medal. So I went and I made sure I practiced. We found a place. The Y in Welland, where I live, was a little bit further from where I live, said that I could come in and I could have a room to myself. And I practiced for 4 or 5 hours a day, almost like 3 times a week. And then Josh and I went to his church and practiced there. So I practiced like 3 or 4 times a week, every day, like all the time until it came to the tournament. And when on the days I wasn't able to practice, I read my sports psychology books, and they make a huge difference. Really, I would say that reading the books as when you're playing bocce makes a bigger difference than actually practicing. As long as you already have the skills, I think being more mentally focused for bocce is sometimes more beneficial than the actual practice. So before nationals, I was doing something to prepare for bocce every single day for several hours a day. I probably drove Loretta crazy, but I wasn't going to go in to a national championships and go all the way to Quebec City and not come home with a medal. And since I've been reading these books and talking to my own sports psychologist, his name is Phil Sullivan at Brock University, I've been able to meet every single goal that I make myself every year. So my first year, I wanted to make the top 10. And then I got into seventh. I was seventh. This year, I wanted to make it into the top 5, and I'm 4th in Canada. So now my next goal, and I can say it to all of you, and hopefully I won't make a liar out of myself, but my goal is to be in top 3. That's another thing that you really should do if you want to play serious bocce or sports in general. You should make yourself a goals list that you stick on your refrigerator or in your bedroom or wherever you can see it every day, and just stay focused on those goals. It'll make you get up in the morning. It'll make you get in your chair and practice, even if you have to practice in your lousy living room. Because I hate practicing in my living room, but I do it if I have to. But I'd like to open it up for a little bit of conversation, or I'd like to know what you guys do to keep yourselves focused, to keep yourselves motivated, and and how you stay confident in a game. I really would like you guys to take something away from this, whether it's, you decide to read Jim Fremo's book or read any book on sports psychology that might help your bocce career, or if you just get some other ideas from people on how to stay focused, how to remain confident when sometimes staying confident is very hard. I'm a pretty confident guy, and I never have went into a game where I don't feel that I can win. But when you're playing number 1 in Canada and you're number 7 or whatever, that can be intimidating, right? So I have many different ways that I try to stay focused and stay confident. There's lots of different ways. There's no right way or wrong way, I don't think. I listen to music just beforehand, and I try not to think too much about the game just before we start playing. And one thing I used to do that was detrimental to my career, my playing bocce, was I would try to, like, what are they going to do? What is the opponent going to do? I've seen them play before. They're going to go to the left, or they're going to go to the right. It's a waste of time to focus on what they're going to do. I have to focus and practice what I know I can do. Let the chips fall where they may. What I've tried to do, and what I talk about with my sports psychologist, is just to play the balls on the court, right? Just don't focus on who you're playing. Just play the balls on the court, because I put too much emphasis on who I'm playing, and how am I going to make them feel, and how am I going to feel them. Like, it's just a constant battle in my head. So the way I've been able to take that out of my head is to just focus on the balls. I'm playing the balls on the court, not another person. You have to take out who you're playing, whether they're friends or not friends or whatever. You have to play to win, because you want to be the best, right? I think that's why we all play bocce, for the most part, is because we want to be the best that we can be. And the nice thing about bocce is that even if you have a severe disability, you can play at a high level, right? Because I spent a long time playing a lot more difficult sports like basketball, and I was never. That's why I coach basketball, because I love basketball and I love the strategy of the game, but I can't play it. And if I can't play at a high level, I don't want to play. So I love bocce, because it gives everybody the opportunity to be able to play at a high level. But just like every other sport, you have to put in the work. You have to practice, practice, practice.
That's great. We can open it up a bit now that Jim is provided with like many different ideas and concepts, things that the rest of all of you have either done as an athlete, or things that you mentioned to your athletes if you're a coach that can help improve your confidence. I put a few notes in the chat. One, I answered Sandra. You were asking, I'm pretty sure, what the book was called, so I put that in there. And then I put the 4 areas of focus that Jim talked about, and then just a few of his hints and tricks. So the first question I was going to sort of ask is, one, are there any other sports psychology books that people have read that they think would be of use? And then, have any of you worked with a sports psychologist? And if yes, some of the tips and tricks that they might have mentioned for you to do to improve your confidence. If anyone else has questions, you're welcome to ask them. Or if you want to try and answer some of the things I just asked, go ahead.
Okay. Do I have my own food psychologist? He teaches old school psychologists, and I had a 5 sessions with her, and she would be good for me, because now I know what I can do to focus. And before I met her, I didn't know how to do that.
Right.
So that was good for me. I'm not working with her right now, because she was a little bit too expensive.
So, my sports psychologist, I go to him, like, he's been nice enough, and he knows the people who helped start the Penguins. So I'm lucky enough that I see him once a month, and he gives me about 45 minutes to an hour for free. So I am lucky that way. And I can send you the link for Jim Efremo's book, A Champion's Mind. I feel like everything he says has a purpose, whereas the other authors go into these huge long stories that are like boring. So he's just very to the point.
I'll open up another question. So confidence can obviously, it's something that you want to have at all points, but specifically, how do you sort of hype yourself up in the confidence department when you're in a call room specifically?
It's kind of hard because you get a whole bunch of people that can be like hard to focus on. So I keep my mind in the game.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard when we have the columns. We never know how many people are gonna be talking.
Yeah, because unfortunately, people like Josh and we like to yell and scream a lot during the call room, so we really don't help you, and I'm sorry for that. Sometimes, unfortunately, not everybody thinks about each other, but so the other books that I actually have, I have How to Think Like, or How a Champion Thinks, which is a pretty good book. That'd probably be my second favorite. And then the Mindful Athlete. That book is it's okay. Like, I read it just for something different. And then the Mind Gym the guy's kind of all over the place, so I didn't really like that one too much. But it's there if you're looking for something different to read. And normally I do add a book every time I have a tournament coming up, even though I tend to go back to Jim Efremo's book for every tournament, just because he's got if there's anything I could suggest is read his book. Like, I'm not doing him justice. He just says the right things to get you pumped up and ready to play, and gives you the confidence, like certainly gives me the confidence to win. One of my biggest things I like about him is he says, there's no reason not to believe that you could win. Why would you believe you can't win? There's no reason to believe you can't win if you put in the time and effort to practice. If you think you put in enough time and enough effort to practice, there's no reason in the world why you can't win. Tend to read it just before I go into a call room. Like, I have certain quotes that I'll read. I have some quotes on my tray just so that I can keep focused during the games too.
You're getting tossed up at a competition because maybe the person that you're competing against is a louder athlete. That should be something potentially that you could add into your training. Sound, music, get your friend to come and just yell. Like, well, I don't know. But if you're training with the thing that normally throws you, it's going to prepare you better for when it happens at competition.
That's another thing you can do. You can if I like the person, I try to push that down and not worry too much about it. But I can be the person who I feel is being a little bit arrogant. For those of you that know me, I try to stay as humble as I can stay and try to make the game fun for everybody. But there's some athletes who, and they have the right to, they take the game so seriously and they want to win. And that's how they know how to win, is to try to be intimidating and try to, use tactics that might not be the most friendly. But that gives me the motivation to want to beat them more.
I think one thing that coming from like a coach perspective, but also when I was training in the sports that I competed in, that I really stuck by was a proper training plan, and actually having one that's developed that's a whole year length. Like, if your goal is to, like Jim said, place top 3 at a certain level, then there needs to be certain steps taken to get to the level, and having them all identified in advance so that you're not scrambling to figure out what they are in the moment.
Not feeling prepared is the worst, right? Like, I know I can win, but I have to feel as if I prepared. If I don't feel if I'm prepared, then I lack confidence, which makes me lose games. So I have to be prepared, both mentally, and I have to know that I put in the hours of practice that are necessary to beat my opponents. Maybe someday I'll want to coach boccia like at a high level, but really I took coaching boccia so that I could coach myself. I thought learning how to coach boccia would really help me become a better player, right? And I think it has. I work on the fundamentals every day, and then I take one or two harder skills and then work on those. Lobbing is a hard skill for most people, so I work on that maybe 2 or 3 times a week, whereas I work on first ball every day. That if you have a first ball, if you have a good first ball, chances are you're going to win that end. Or even if they get lucky, they're not going to score more than 1 or 2 tops.
So the drill I like to do a lot is I put a ball of the other color on the jack, like the other person's first ball, and I make it as perfect as possible, and then I try and get it off and take the point back and see how many balls it takes.
Exactly.
Because you have to assume that they're going to nail it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a perfect drill, especially because Josh is a ramper, and a lot of rampers can nail a jack every time, right? So yeah, I almost have to become skilled at knocking it off every time. With BC2, a good BC2 might nail it 60% of the time.
Have you guys seen the new gold medal profile stuff on the Boccia Canada site? It actually shows you the throws for each classification and how often you should be hitting them. And that could be even a way, again, this is very, very technical, but if you're seeing progress from the start of the year to the mid to the end of the year of each skill, then you're going to feel more confident as well, right?
Yeah,
just knowing where your benchmarks are.
And motivated too, motivated to practice more than you already are, right? I know when I have a really good practice, it motivates me for the next day, or I'll practice for an extra half an hour. Yes.
He give me quotes on Zoom to motivate me from TV shows. He reads with codes and reading it with quotes we use to remind myself to think where we are and what we're doing throughout the practice.
Actually, there, Sandra, you're speaking about, I assume, your relationship with Tammy in terms of trusting her, right? If you do have a coach that you're working with directly, consistently, you want to make sure that that relationship is one of trust going both ways, that they're not just telling you a bunch of random stuff for no reason, right? You want to know that it's for a reason.
And she knows me really well, and she talked to me and can you do this? And I can. Yeah. Remind me I can do it, and she's really good at doing that with me. So,
Very important, definitely very important as a coach to remind your athletes that they're quite capable of reaching their goals, for sure. What I like to do, and I love to be the first one there and the last one to leave. And I've been to training camps in Montreal where I'm the first one there, and I'm the last one to leave. And I don't, because I feel like if I'm there and to put in the work, I might as well work my butt off. So I think if they're going to put their effort and time and money into me, I best put forth my best effort, because I want to be great at boccia, right? But boccia is something that all of us can play, and if you want to be good, just put in the effort and put in the time it takes to be good, right? Is there any other questions or thoughts?
Oh, Jim, I found a video on YouTube this week that was pretty good through my college course.
Yeah.
I take sports psychology, and there was a video called Sports Performance Anxiety, and the guy's name was Dr. Aziz. He was a sports psychologist, and his video was really good.
And I would suggest to everybody that, don't be afraid to read all kinds of books about sports psychology, because you should always get a variety of thoughts and when it comes to anything, so that you can make up your own mind and make the best decision that you can. Yeah.
As I've mentioned at the beginning of this session, we are planning on doing way more of these. I am going to wrap this up. I'm really, really happy that all of you joined us. And again, this is just the first one of these. Like, I think all of us getting in a Zoom call together and hopefully eventually in person together to have these types of conversations are going to be very, very beneficial. And again, I want them to be really practical, things that you can take and actually use. Jim, I'll put it back to you. You can finish us up.
Thank you for coming, guys. I really appreciate the fact that you wanted to chat and wasn't just me talking, because I'd much prefer a conversation where we can all learn something. I much prefer this format where we can all just chat and kind of brainstorm ideas and things like that. And I learned some stuff too this week, see? So it's great. Thank you so much for coming and listening. And
great job, Jimmer.
Good job, Jim. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Leo, do the outro song.
OCPSA would like to thank Jim Davis for leading this conversation. We would also like to thank all the athletes and coaches that participated in this discussion. If you have a topic that you would like to discuss on Worth the Effort, let us know by commenting on this video or messaging OCPSA.